Should Booker want out of Phoenix?
Not only should he want out, and the answer to that question would be yes, not only should he want out, I think that Devin Booker should arrange to have himself kidnapped.
March 27th, 2019. Over 6 years ago, Stephen A. Smith said that about Devin Booker and his situation with the Phoenix Suns. Since then, a lot has happened. Devin Booker made the playoffs, he made the finals, the Phoenix Suns had a 64-win season, he won 2 gold medals, he was in MVP conversations, they even traded for Kevin Durant. And now, well, now, they might be in a worse position than when Stephen A. Smith said that 6 years ago. Because at least when this happened, Devin Booker was still young. Yes, the Suns were a rebel. Yes, they hadn't made the playoffs, but there was still time. And as we saw, that time did give the Suns an opportunity to have a great few seasons. Devin Booker is now 28, and whilst he still has at least 5 years of great basketball left, how long is it going to take Phoenix to reconstruct this roster? Unless, of course, you think that the new NBA strategy is to have a roster full of shooting guards, because if that's the case, the Suns are about to blow the rest of the NBA out of the water. I mean, just look at this team. Just take a second to look and appreciate the depravity of this roster, the absurdity, the disastrous nature of a roster with 7 shooting guards, with 90% of their salary cap going to players who not only play the same position, who have the same style of play. And like I said, unless the NBA is gearing towards a league that is run by shooting guards and lineups that include 3, maybe even 4 of them at once, then the Suns are in a position where they are going to be absolutely terrible this season. And of course, unless you've been living under a rock, this is what happens when you trade your depth. You trade all of your future draft capital for Kevin Durant, who 2 years later decides he wants to leave. But not just leave. He only wants to go to one of 3 teams. And this is the real kicker for Devin Booker and the Phoenix Suns. Because not only did you overpay for KD, giving up Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson alongside 5 first-round picks, which with Mikal Bridges going for 5 first-round picks after that trade, and Cam Johnson going for another 2 in the future, you gave up about a dozen first-round picks. Not only did you overpay for Kevin Durant in the moment, but when it was time to trade Kevin Durant, you had to take the worst trade package because he refused to sign for any teams outside of San Antonio, Miami, or Houston. And Miami didn't even want him anyway, so there was no leverage, there was no opportunity, and you had to let go of Kevin Durant after a deal had been made to have Jimmy Butler in Phoenix just a few months prior, before KD vetoed that trade because he didn't want to go to the Warriors. And because of KD's decision to only go to one of 2 teams, according to Kevin O'Connor, this means the Suns missed out on a trade for Darius Garland. That is all he reported, not the rest of the deal, but apparently Darius Garland could have been a Phoenix Sun. Can you imagine how much easier Devin Booker's life would be with Darius Garland? There would be hope. There would be potential. 25 years old, an all-star point guard, one of the most talented point guards in the league, a playmaker, a shooter, a winning player. There would actually be a reason for Devin Booker to stay. The Chris Paul connection, how Booker thrived alongside Chris Paul. I'm not saying Darius Garland is that level of player, but all of those off-ball traits that D-Book has that are so great next to a guy who can play make, who can also get off the ball as well and flourish next to Devin Booker. You know what? I'm actually getting sad even thinking about the possibility, because it would have been special. And that's without even mentioning the Minnesota deal that was reportedly made, involving Rudy Gobert, Dante DiVincenzo, Rob Dillingham, and the 17th overall pick. And again, this is all speculation. We might hear later from Brian Windhorst or Shams, who are much more reputable, but regardless, Devin Booker has been put in a worse position because of both the Suns' incompetence and Kevin Durant only wanting to be traded to one of those 3 teams, which tanked his value completely and left them with Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks instead of potentially Darius Garland. These were the opportunities for the Suns to at least be competitive. They still would have been flawed and still would have been paying that man $50 million a year, but they at least would have had a roster. There at least would have been something to have a bit of hope for. Instead, Devin Booker is in a situation where he has Nick Richards as his best big. He has 7 shooting guards next to him. Who is playing point guard? I mean, it's going to be Devin Booker, and whilst he is a great playmaker, one of the most underrated playmakers in the league, he shouldn't be running the offense all game long, because that takes away from some of his biggest strengths that he has as an off-ball player. He's elite cutting, he's elite three-point shooting, his elite movement off the ball. Do you wonder why Devin Booker's shooting numbers, his efficiency dropped last year? It's because he was forced to do so much as a playmaker, as a primary creator, that he didn't get to flourish in those same ways that he has done in the past. We saw this in the Olympics when Devin Booker was the glue guy. Remember all those empty stats narratives? Those were all dispelled. Those have been dispelled over the last few years, and in particular during the Olympics, where he just did what the team needed to help them win. And now he is left in a situation where there's just no hope of him even being able to do the little things to help the team win, because he's going to need to do absolutely everything. Donovan Mitchell, Anthony Edwards, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jaylen Brown. These are all of his peers. These are all players in situations where they have the opportunity to win. Devin Booker should be in the prime of his career. He should be looking to win and compete for championships. Instead, he has this rabble of a roster. And when we talk about how it is a travesty to not have LeBron or Steph or KD in the playoffs, it is equally a travesty when Devin Booker is not in the playoffs. Because yes, he was swept the last time he was in the playoffs by Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves, but if you go back just a year earlier, he had one of the greatest stretches of scoring I have ever seen in the playoffs. During a championship run in which Denver went 16-4, in which they were completely dominant for the entire postseason, there was only one point in that entire run where it looked like they might lose. And it wasn't because there was a team playing better than them or a team that looked more connected. No, it was much more simple than that. They looked like they might lose because Devin Booker looked like the greatest shot maker to ever live. I know what you're thinking. He's exaggerating. The greatest shot maker to ever live, blah, blah, blah. I can promise you one thing I'm not doing is exaggerating. Because it wasn't just the 2 games against Denver that he led them to victory, but it was an 8-game stretch where he averaged 38 points and 8 assists on 63% from the field, 54% from 3, and 89% from the line. And the shots he was taking and making were ridiculous.
Jittering into the paint, Booker. Oh my! Booker slicing through, cups it up, and in!
I mean, just look at him in transition, the little hesitation before driving into the chest of Michael Porter Jr. and the one-legged fade leaning off the glass. Or even a more simple quote-unquote shot where KD gets the handoff from Ayton, throws it back to Booker, and just look at that little hesitation before going right and in one motion rising up for the 3. I say simple, but that is a shot that is only made simple because Devin Booker has some of the best footwork you will ever see, because Devin Booker is one of the most polished scorers and one of the most comfortable offensive players you could ever see. And he thrives in an environment where other players can at least work alongside him, instead of an environment where everyone else is trying to do the same thing Devin Booker does, but just significantly worse. That is basically the Suns. Here's Devin Booker, and here is everyone else who plays like Devin Booker, but is significantly worse. Now, if you want to hear me talk about Kevin Durant and how he helped ruin the Phoenix Suns, then consider clicking on this video, subscribe for more content like this. Either way, have a great day.